Right, so I think we'll begin, and I would like to start by a very warm welcome to all of you who are joining us from this evening, as I am in London and it is 8 o'clock in the evening here. Um, and we really appreciate you coming along and hope that you'll find this webinar informational and thought-provoking with the various topics that we're going to be discussing. My name is Laura Ligori, and I'm the head of global curriculum for Britannica Education. I myself was an international educator for 21 years before joining Britannica. I have also been a PYP teacher. In my role with Britannica, I'm leading a global campaign for IB, and we have a fantastic IB community of schools that are working with Britannica. And we are also growing our community every day, which is really exciting. And part of what we've been doing for several months now is having several roundtable discussions globally on what we call thought leadership. And what we are doing is based on our knowledge of the IB and based on our understanding of what IB educators are facing in the age of technology. We are very proud to be able to bring this webinar to you in Brazil and Latin America. I would like, with no further ado, to introduce our lovely panelists who are very experienced IB educators who are joining this evening to discuss the various topics. If we could start perhaps with Pablo, if you would like to introduce yourself.
Hi everyone, I'm Pablo. I'm head librarian in Basic School in São Paulo. We work with IB since, I'm not sure, but more than 10 years, probably, yeah.
Fantastic.
And we're working with Britannica also for more than 10 years, I think.
Fantastic. So wealth of experience. And Julia, would you like to introduce yourself?
Sure thing. Thank you so much for this invitation. My name is Julia Vussefeld. I'm the PYP coordinator at Red House International School, Curitiba. I was a DP student, so I'm a DP graduate. I studied abroad and I studied here in Brazil as well. And I've been working in education for probably around 15 years now. And this is the beginning of our school as an IB school. But we've been working toward our candidacy in the last 3 years. So it's been a long process, but now we're fully an authorized school. And we're very excited to be joining you guys in this webinar today.
Oh, we're very excited to have you, Julia. Thank you. And Bea, if you'd like to introduce yourself.
Hello, everyone. Thank you for the invitation. I'm Beatriz. I am the current head librarian, library coordinator at Beacon School in São Paulo. Prior to that, I was a media specialist and MIPDP librarian in a school, IB school in Mexico City. So I have around 7-8 years of experience in IB schools, and I'm very glad to be here joining to talk about IB.
Thank you for joining us. And so we'll start with a little bit of context. As an IB teacher myself, and since I've been at Britannica, and for several years, I've been working with international schools to integrate technology and embed it in the curriculum to enhance teaching and learning. I do know that the IBO does have a vision for technology integration, and that is quite clearly articulated. It also has more specific goals and objectives for the PYP, the MYP, and the DP, with the integration of digital technologies and AI quite high on the agenda. In many of the schools that I talk to in the IB world, they tell us that when the IBO comes around every 5 years, they are looking now specifically to see how digital technologies are embedded and are serving student inquiry. For schools that are coming up for authorization, it's also a key priority. Where most IB educators are sort of struggling is in the sense that how do we actually do it? How do we do it with intent? And how do we measure the impact? And so some of the questions here, we hope, will address some of those thoughts in the minds of IB educators. So in this discussion, we will be exploring the power of technology in the IB. Is technology creating opportunities for critical thinking and deeper learning? Or is it creating more challenges than opportunities for enriching the IB educational experience? As AI is adopted into teaching and learning in IB programs, How can it be effectively integrated to enhance inquiry and interdisciplinary learning? And what steps must school leaders take to ensure academic rigor and integrity is maintained? Some very key issues. So we'll start with our questions and in no particular order. We'll be asking our panelists. Surely you will have questions that come to mind as well. And what we'd like you to do is to put your questions in the chat box. We will then leave ample time at the end for further Q&A and to have some real discussion around this topic. And so if we can start with the first question, how do you, our panelists, think digital tools are transforming student learning experiences in the IB? And I may ask if Bea, would you like to take that one first?
Sure. So I think it's important for us as IB educators to use digital tools. And I think IB as a global curriculum, it provides students easy access. They can be connected with other IB schools. And when I talk about digital tools in the IB, it comes to my mind, especially the projects, the PYP exhibition, the personal project, extended essay, TOK essay, even CAS. So as a librarian, we tend to use those digital tools for them to help in their inquiry process. So sometimes they have prompts that they don't know how to analyze or to specify a little bit better what they're looking for. And those digital tools provides them to create products, create different questions. And I think, especially coming from a very inclusive school, the digital tools also provide students different ways to tell the teachers they're learning. So now they can showcase and show and tell in different ways that we had before in the traditional way of studying.
And that's a fantastic, thank you. Yes, it's going beyond tradition, which does in itself opens up lots of other areas to explore. And Julia, how do you think that these digital tools are transforming the way students are learning in the IB?
I see it twofold. I see, first of all, when we talk about the digital tools impact exactly on student learning and the student experience, students now have access to technology. At least in our school, we have a bring your own device policy for students years 4 and up. So we see this integration in the classroom a lot more than we've seen in previous generations of students in schools. And I think it's also they're younger with more access to online resources. And I think that digital tools have been around in schools for the longest time, so it's been quite a few generations, that we've had computer labs and things like that. We've been seeing this a little bit more seamless in classrooms, and we've seen this transition. But I think that the biggest discussion right now is artificial intelligence and how we have this and how this is transforming student learning. I think that's the biggest thing that we have been discussing here at Red House. And I think, just like you mentioned in your introduction, it's something that can both deepen student learning, but there's also the pitfall where we're cutting down and we're just giving them shortcuts to critical thinking. So it's important that we use it as a balance. But I think that something else that we feel, and we feel this not only in student usage, but teacher usage throughout, is just how simple, not simple, but how much more effective student work and this background work that students have in analyzing student data, in designing lesson plans, how that all can be augmented by artificial intelligence and just digital tools as a whole. That makes our jobs a lot easier, and therefore it impacts the students' experience at the school as well.
Absolutely. I mean, there are lots and lots of benefits that educators see coming through. And in the next question, we're going to talk about some of the challenges and the notion of cognitive deficit as well. So this is it's a really challenging time for all of us as educators, and to learn how to strike a balance. And so, Pablo, just looking at what you see or how these digital tools are transforming student learning experiences in the IB.
I think that I agree with Julia and Beatriz. I would add the digital tools. I think they make especially the research process, specifically talking about the exhibition and also extended essay. Digital tools can provide us a more like a dynamic process of finding information, reliable information. But our main concern is also how can we trust that our students are using technology in a positive way? Are they really finding reliable information, or they just want to find information using the easiest way to find? So this is like a big concern that we have at this moment. And also thinking about the screen time, there's also this discussion happening about if we should encourage them to use lots and lots of digital tools, or should we find a balance of how much time they would use digital tools to find reliable information and research and everything else.
Absolutely. And I think in the summary, it's about there are many benefits. It's an excellent research tool. It's quick access to information, information that they probably would never have been able to access without digital tools or AI. And in terms of leaning towards our next question with AI, it has prompted, even through recent research and amongst educators and debate, is the use of AI really enhancing subject knowledge? Or is it just a tool whereby children go for the answers and do not really reflect on what information they're getting? And therefore, potentially, critical thinking can be impacted. And this is something that we just don't know yet because it's still early days. But if we're able to identify some of the common challenges or barriers, if we're able to anticipate that and identify that, then we can begin to strategize. So, from the opinions of our panelists, what do you think some of the challenges are in terms of AI integration in the IB? And I'd be very specifically interested at the moment, before moving to other panelists and hearing from Julia, in terms of the PYP. Because we do have younger children. And what do you see as some of the challenges with children in the PYP using AI to support their inquiry?
A lot of the students that we have, they come in for their first years with their computers, and they're really excited to use them, and they're new to the device itself. Of course, we have been using them in the earlier years in the elementary school, but we usually share the computers, and it's, you know, so it's their first time using their own computer. A lot of them come with tools like Copilot, for example, and so it's embedded into the software of our students. So one thing that we were very clear with all families in the beginning of the year is, first of all, we need parental controls on these devices so that we're limiting a little bit, you know, how much students can, you know, open up toward the, you know, the internet, because they're young children. And just like we wouldn't let them walk alone on the street with strangers, you know, surrounding them. If we think about it, the internet is exactly the same thing. We're surrounded by strangers. We're surrounded by information that we don't know if we can trust. And so having this step has been something that we've been really going for as a community. And it's been one of the biggest changes that we've had in the last years here. When it comes to, let's say, just this pitfall of maybe like cognitive deficit, that we don't exactly have 100% of the data yet. I think that our biggest job as educators is being aware of this potential pitfall that we could go into. And so even though we're still in the PYP, we're still beginning, and we're still in the basics of these research skills, making sure that we impart this balance onto our students from an early age, I think, is just so important.
Absolutely.
Yeah, because our students could potentially learn to use artificial intelligence or just digital technologies altogether for all different parts of the inquiry process. Just like they could simply use analog resources for the entirety of their inquiry cycle. But learning when to use one or the other, what are the strengths and weaknesses that we could use for our research, it starts in the PYP, especially in the process of the exhibition that Pablo mentioned. So our job as educators is to be aware, to be explicit about the teaching of this, and also to kind of like run a little bit of surveillance as to what is happening both inside the classroom and also at home and in families, and to open this dialogue with the families.
And I also think it's what you said about balance. The IBO is very, very keen on balance, the balance between the use of AI and real world practical experiences. And of course, with the younger children, we want them getting out there and touching soil and building things and having that sort of balance. And this is a challenge that we're facing right now, and how to balance that. And if we go towards older children, MYP, DP, Pablo, what views do you have about some of the challenges that we can be facing in say the MYP or the DP when technology is being integrated, particularly AI?
We don't have MIP yet. We'll start offering MIP next year, but we have DP in our school, and we feel I wouldn't like to say pressure, but we feel like students are really, really, really into AI. They like to use it. So our main concern is, are they using in the right way? I mean, I know that it's a new technology. We're still discussing if it's a good tool for education. So there's lots and lots of discussions here. There's different meetings related to different segments with teachers and coordinators, and also we're trying to invite students to understand what they think about it and why they like to use AI so much. It seems to us that what they like about ChatGPT specifically and Gemini is that they can find information in a simple way. It's really simple to create a question. It's really simple to create a prompt, and answers and the replies are really fast. But our main concern is, do they have enough conscious about what is reliable and what is not reliable? So this is our main concern at school at this moment, specifically about DP, because they have the extended essay that has lots and lots of researches.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah.
The whole concern about misinformation, disinformation, AI can hallucinate, bias.
Exactly.
Do we need to think about, and we'll talk about strategy in terms of helping them navigate this world, which potentially could hinder their ability to develop deep subject knowledge. Bia, I would love to hear your views on what you see are the challenges with AI integration in the context of the IB.
Oh, there are so many. First, talking about the IB curriculum, I think the PYP, MIPDP is a process of scaffolding their learning process. So, for example, in PYP, we start introducing them mechanisms of research and the search itself, introducing them to those digital environments, although they do have this experience at home. So sometimes we also have to support and educate parents somehow, because they also are going to rely on what their parents are doing at home. So for MIP, we already started discussing for them trying to use AI and start critical thinking about, is it true? Where is this taking this information from? Like, for them to understand how AI works, and those in bringing for them already ethical discussions, because they in MIP they already start to think about ethical values and the moral part of using that intellectual property. Students love to do images with AI. So there's a whole discussion behind it. But also as a school, one of the challenges I would think it's the teachers and educators feeling overwhelmed, because we are an IB school, we are embracing digital tools. So every time there's a new one for us to learn, for us to adopt. But if we want to embrace all of them, I do think we're going to lose ourselves in the middle, because we do have to sit down as a school, as a community, and to understand, is this tool useful for us, for the students? Because somehow we are going to embrace all of them and not necessarily they're going to be useful for us or for the students.
And
Yeah,
yeah, I
and
think oh, sorry, go ahead, Pablo.
sorry, Laura, I was just going to add that, and I also have to think, also have to consider that we're aware that each school has its own core, has its own strategies, has its own profile. Each school is different from another. And I'm aware that some schools in São Paulo are already using ChatGPT and Google Gemini and Copilot, etc., like free. Teachers can use it, students can use it since early years until high school. We're not in that point yet. We're still trying to find if it's reliable and if we're going to use it in a safe way. So our kids from elementary school are not allowed to use any kind of tool related to AI. But in middle school, teachers are already using with students. But students can use it like they only can use if it's related to some kind of project or some kind of activity. They in high school, I think they can use it also in this strategy. It's allowed to use only if it's related to some project, some activity, or things like that. So I know each school has its different reality, but it's important to understand that it's a new technology and we're still finding how can we use it in a positive way.
Perfect.
Absolutely.
To add to that, that even though we do have different values as different schools, I think that one thing that we carry with us are the ATLs. You know, this is something that's going to common to all the schools. And so creating this culture of thinking, this culture of research, of reflecting on and validating sources, I think that's something that we carry throughout. So whether it's something that we learn in the PYP or in the MYP, the late PYP or the early MYP, I think it's just something that we're all going to be discussing at some point. And validating and supporting, like Bia said, validating and supporting our educators throughout this process too.
Absolutely. And I think in terms of the ATL skills, that will be in our fourth question, addressing that. So we will hold on to that thought for a moment. And we're also hearing a range of issues here: misinformation, disinformation. We're also hearing about safeguarding our children, also about the ethical considerations. And AI is driving a world whereby children have to spend more time really thinking about the knowledge they're acquiring, and that balance and skill to be able to identify it, which is very new. And a lot of educators still don't know how we go about that. So this is a significant challenge. So if we think about a notion of deep versus shallow tech with integration, we're finding that a lot of schools, including IB schools, will have marvelous digital ecosystems, and it may even be in your own schools, to the all of our participants tonight, where you have teachers using various apps, learning management content, open AI systems, and really knowing and hoping they're going to serve, inquiry, deepen conceptual understanding, make those interdisciplinary links. However, do the schools have strategies, concrete strategies? For tech to be embedded deeply, there has to be a vision, and typically coming from leadership. So if we think about leadership's role in ensuring digital technologies are implemented effectively in schools, what do you think school leaders, panelists, should be thinking about as we proceed and continue in this age of AI? What should be on their agenda in terms of a vision for the PYP, MYP, DP, or their school in general? And perhaps this time, may I say, Bea, would you like to address that first?
Well, as leadership, I think, and I feel very privileged to work in a school that actually provide resources and space and structure for that. Because we do have an EdTech department here that focus and develops and look at those tools also as a way to provide the best. But I think professional development is a way to provide teachers a safe space to understand. We understand that there's a lot going on and we're learning together. So teachers are learning with the students, and we have to think about the future and try to. And I think Julia was the one saying this. We have to already be stating or considering what is going on in those tools. So I think for leadership, providing a safe space and structure for professional development is very important, because in a way that if we prepare teachers and they feel comfortable regarding those tools and AI, then they can model this to students, because they're going to look at us as a model, as an example. So if we just showcase how we use it and provoke those questions back to them, then I think is a first step.
Absolutely. And I would like to add to that for a moment, if I will. I was speaking at a roundtable discussion last week in London with some very high-level policy and decision makers in the world of education, really spanning from this part of the world through to India. And we were talking about the notion of competencies. So, which competencies do children need to navigate AI, and then which competencies do teachers need to navigate AI? And policymakers are struggling with this notion of what those key competencies should be. So, Bia, when you mentioned professional development, professional learning, you're absolutely right. What should that look like specifically? I think presents a greater challenge. I think there are some areas we could identify immediately. There are probably others where we're still trying to work that out, and how to skill up our teachers to be facilitators, to also to be role models. It's a very tricky area. And
And
so in
Laura,
terms,
sorry, if we can add also, I think the way that we are right now, we have to form teachers, support parents, and to educate the students. So that's the level that we are right now. And those guidelines and frameworks that we have to build as a school, it has to bring the whole community to decide whether it's important, whether we are aiming at or not.
exactly, exactly. And so if we think continuing about leadership, professional development is a very important aspect. Julia, what do you think might be one key aspect? You're a leader, you're a coordinator. If you think about the integration technology in the PYP, what would be one thing in the top of your mind that you would need to consider as technology is used at your school?
I think Bia hit the nail on the head when she talks about professional development. I think this open communication with teachers is very important, because again, they are the ones on the front lines and they're the ones bringing these issues to us and saying, look, my students are using this, my students are using that. How can we as a community learn from this and then help guide them? On our end, also as administrator, but then also opening to the community. I think it's really important that we work on these policies together. Academic integrity policies, use of AI policies as well. I think this is something that must be on everybody's agenda right now, so that we can do this in a way that is conscious and bringing this to the knowledge of the entire community through PDs, but also integrating parents also in this understanding. I think that's something else that is very key to the administrators. And whenever we do come up with these policies, I think it's important that we also define strategies for explicit teaching of the AI, of the competencies, as you mentioned, Laura, because I think it's crucial that we strike this balance between having students run free with the AI platforms like Pablo mentioned, but also not using it, because I do believe we're at a point where it increases our efficiency so much that those that don't use it are sometimes wasting a little bit of their time when they could be a little bit more efficient in some of the things they do. So striking this balance in clearly outlining paths for educators to trail along with their students, I think that's the key.
Fantastic. Absolutely. Thank you. And Pablo, what would you see as a key aspect of this technology integration that a leader should have in mind?
I think scholar leaderships have to be aware that although it's a new technology, it's here to stay. It's already, if you ask me this, maybe 1 year ago, I would say that I'm not sure if it's going to evolve that much. I'm not sure if it's going to be something that will be related to different areas. And 1 year later, now we can say that yes, it's here. It's here to stay. We can see advertisement using AI tools already, science, medical um, medical researches, and so it's something that is here and it's hitting everywhere. So we as educators, and of course our leaders, as leaders also, school leaders, we have to it's important to find a balance and to serve as role models for how to use this in a positive way. So just like Bia said a few minutes ago, it's important for us to keep learning and to have different kinds of information coming from different places, so we can be aware of what's happening and how can we use it in a safe way with our students.
Absolutely. And I think one of the things that Julia has said as well is it's having a forum for leaders to communicate with one another, to express their views about the challenges they're facing, and to be able to perhaps collectively in the IB world come up with some form of strategy. Now, we know the IBO holds a number of conferences and AI is increasingly becoming a topic, but to have more of these types of informal discussions that we're hearing now, more and more IB educators are asking for them. So potentially even leaders should be thinking about in the IB world, could they have some informal forums within their regions by which they can just openly and honestly talk about all of these issues, and how are they going about developing policy and strategy around AI integration in the IB. So if we turn now toward the ATL skills, and in particular critical thinking and research, for example, we've mentioned the notion of cognitive deficit. I was reading a very recent research by Cambridge University Press was saying that they're finding that we can't yet conclude that AI is causing a cognitive deficit, or that it is actually depleting knowledge. However, there is a debate around how children are using the tool. Like I think Pablo said, quick, fast, and easy information. What could be the danger of that? How could that impact critical thinking? And could it lead to cognitive deficits? So maybe, Pablo, would you like to start us off on that?
I think just like you told us, Laura, I think there's no a right answer for that question. I read somewhere, I think what it was yesterday, MIT developed some kind of study trying to find a cognitive deficit of using AI. So they can measure in the moment that students and also grown-ups are using some kind of AI tool, and they can compare with different activities with people that are not using an AI tool. So during the moments that people are using, when comparing to people that are not using AI tools, brain cells and brain stimulation, it's more effective in people that are not using AI tools. But the research, the answer that they can give us is related to the moment that people are using AI. It's still not possible to say how it's going to be maybe in a more long-term use of the tool, the AI tool. So I don't think we have this answer yet. So in our school, we're still kind of trusting in our reducing kids' screen time. So, for example, our preschool students have like almost zero screen time. Elementary school has a little bit more screen time. When they reach their 5th grade and they start using their devices to research, specifically related to exhibition, so they feel more free to use any kind of devices, and of course more screen. So we're still kind of really trusting in this kind of strategy at this moment, but everything may change in the future. We're not sure yet.
Yeah, I agree, Pablo. And something else to just quickly share. We're talking about, looking at children who use AI and who don't. And there's the whole discussion around what we would call digital poverty and the debate between children who do not have access to the internet and the ability to get all this knowledge so quickly compared to those who are working still with maybe more traditional resources such as textbooks. And so we have to think in line with critical thinking being deeper or impacted negatively. Does it necessarily have to be a negative consequence of children receiving a lot more information a lot more quickly than they could have ever? Does that really hinder critical thinking? Or do you think that actually it challenges them to try to make sense of what they're learning and to think more critically about the knowledge that comes through? And Julia, I know I'm deviating slightly from that question, but I'm quite sure that, from the younger children point of view, in this age of information, do you think too much information is not a good thing? Or do you think it can stimulate a degree of critical thinking that maybe they wouldn't be able to if they didn't have access?
I certainly believe that having access to information is always good. One thing that we have to do is to safeguard children from the information that they're receiving, that they're exposed to. So I think that once again that's a big topic, but I don't believe that necessarily will AI hinder critical thinking. It's easy for children to simply input a question into AI and receive a quick question or a quick answer. And in that sense, we're kind of skipping the reflection part of, the asking of the question. But I think that as long as we do hold moments for reflection and we do hold moments for sometimes even a comparison of AI without AI, and this metacognition that goes on through this comparison, I believe that's very rich. And so I think that with AI, we are able to access a richness, and we are also able to lead our students to deeper critical thinking that we might not necessarily reach without it. I think that it cuts out a bit of the middleman, a bit of like browsing through Google a little bit, or like flipping through pages on flipping. I'm not saying that these skills aren't important, but at certain moments, it might be interesting to work with that shortcut.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And these are all really key considerations. And I will now turn to Bia in terms of your thoughts on cognitive deficit.
I do think both outcomes are available right now, but it depends on how we are going to approach it. As Pablo and Julia said, if we're trying to all the time say that it's wrong, that we can use it, that it's really bad, that we know there are some educators are in that perspective, and we understand and we validate that. But if we have to understand, if we're always telling the students that it's not a reliable source, that they cannot take any information from AI, they're just going to ignore and use it more. So we have to maybe prompt some discussions or provoke questions like, if we are using AI for this inquire process or this project, what AI helped you in this process? Did it help in anything at all? Did it change your perspective on that topic? Did it bring something new? But also pointing that the authority from that source is always going to be important. I think students now are relying a lot on AI, even more than on Google. And we know that Google, they have to go through different sources and different options, but they are relying right now in AI. So they're completely ignoring going through the process. And sometimes I think we value so much the knowledge itself than the learning process. And I think the learning process is equally essential for their growing. So I do think both outcomes are going to happen, but it depends on how we approach to the students.
Exactly. And just adding to that, a lot of IB educators now are saying, a lot of information is great, providing it's reliable, it's trustworthy, but also it can really stimulate curiosity and wonder and the richness of student questions. Student questions may be of a higher level potentially than they had been without these additional resources. And this is only with something we can see over time as educators and leading into the idea of how can we measure impact. And so because time is running and we could talk about a lot of things, I'm just going to combine the last two questions to make it a little bit simple. And we get into the notion of academic rigor and integrity. Within the context of AI, academic integrity is a real concern amongst educators, probably more with the older children, the MYP and DP, as they run their personal projects and also the extended essay. But also in the PYP, when leading up to PYP exhibition, for example, there could be concerns about content that is simply copy and pasted without having been reflected on and thought about in a meaningful way for real life application. So if we think about academic integrity and the impact that IB has on that, if there's a question around academic integrity, do you think we could ever really truly measure the impact of AI when we're not quite sure we can rely on the information that our students are getting? And I think just Julia, you may want to go
Sure.
first with that one. Sure.
Sure. I think what I mentioned before of having and designing learning moments that explicitly work with AI, I think that's the best way that we can actually measure the impact of AI on our earlier learners, even with the older students as well. If we can limit the amount of time at which they're using it and using it in the classroom together with the teacher, I think that that might be key. Because in that sense, we can have an example of student writing by hand and see exactly what their thoughts are, and we can compare that to, let's say, something that has been generated through AI, or let's say that it's been AI processed, so it's been used for correction or proofreading, or it's used to expand research further. So based on this, what are the questions that you would suggest? What questions do you have? I think that we can use it as tools in different parts, and just making sure that our teachers are designing these moments and not just letting AI take over the classroom. I think that right now with our early learners, that's the best way that we have of measuring this impact on their learning right now, because we don't have the data of a couple years in the future.
Right.
We just have our day-to-day lessons and what we're feeling right now from our older students, because we only have until year 5. Our year 6 will come next year, and little by little we'll see this impact as they grow. And hopefully with this culture of thinking, with this culture of validating sources, of this the process of transparency within academic integrity, as we embed that into their culture little by little, we just hope that this is going to continue on into the MYP and the PY and the DP.
Right, exactly. And I'm just being reminded of the time, but we're really going to be on track with this. And I just want to travel all the way up to the DP and the notion of academic integrity. And if we think about AI, how can DP educators really be sure that what they're reading has come from the thoughts of the child and not plagiarized? Pablo, would you like to take that?
Well, we're still discussing it here in our school. We just prepare like a official document about academic integrity related to high school, specifically related to IB and extended essay. But we still don't have like the right answer to that. I mean, when we have a Turnitin subscription, that it has like a specific tool that it should be capable of finding patterns of AI text generation, but it doesn't work like 100%. And also, I think there's a Google extension that it's called Draftback, if I'm not wrong, that can also indicate that if a piece of the text that you received in an email or in a document could be written in a pattern of AI language. So I don't know. We don't have exact answers to yet. Should we ban it? Should we encourage? Should we use a software that could tell us that this activity was written using AI? We still don't have that answer. We're still discussing it. I'm being honest. I'm being
And
100%.
many educators globally are discussing this as well. It's a very challenging question. And Bia, some final thoughts, if you may, on academic integrity in the context of the IB.
Well, now I'm going to be talking more about my classroom experience before. I think talking to high school students regarding academic integrity, we have to find different ways to call their attention. What I used to do is like, well, guys, you are in the final track, you're in the final path of high school and school. Multiple of them are looking for university. So universities are also considering your digital citizenship. So everything that you do online is very important. They're going to keep a track on you. And also, this is not something that we are just telling you because it's easier for us to assign and assess whether you're using AI or not. But also, we are trying to make you understand that for the future, when you leave school, is also going to be important. You're going to come across different discussions and more deeper discussions, more serious ones. So I think also a way for us to understand and to talk about academic integrity that I think is a culture from each school. I think if we just talk about academic integrity, just a set of rules, students are going to question a lot and maybe not give the whole look as the importance that it has. So are the students asking better questions for the teachers, for the whole community? Are we able to identify if they can evaluate sources better than before? And also the traditional way of teacher talking to teacher regarding that student, I think is a way for us to keep a track on. It doesn't look like his or her writing. So different ways and minimal strategies that we can think of.
Right. And you just reminded me in a roundtable discussion I was participating in a couple of weeks ago, and I was participant, and one of my colleagues said, we don't want to become police. We don't want to become thought police or police. We don't want AI turning teachers into that sort of police model because we know what happens. The more rules there, the more temptation to break the rules. And it's about responsible digital citizenship. Well, we will open the, thank you very much, panelists. And we're going to just, we don't have any questions in the chat from what I can see, but would any of our audience like to pose a question to any of us here on the panel? You feel free to put it in the chat box if you like. It's quite a lot of information coming through. And so while you're gathering your thoughts, if you do have a question, please do reach out now or even after the webinar. And I think we've covered a lot of ground in this webinar, and these are issues and questions that they're just not a lot of answers. But I think what's been critical here is an opportunity for IB educators to come together and discuss what's very important and key in this age of AI. It's here now. It's not going to go away, and it's going to develop even faster. So I think it's absolutely wonderful what's happening in the global community of IB educators is we're starting to have these discussions, starting to think and reflect on ways forward and what to do. And I'm sure for many listening to us this evening, your schools probably have a number of policies and are looking at a number of ways to safeguard our children, to teachers being role models, to demonstrate competencies that are important in the age of AI, and to also to effectively be using various digital tools to serve inquiry, not to drive inquiry, but to serve inquiry and to enhance knowledge. We at Britannica have also entered into the age of AI. A lot of you remember us as Encyclopedia Britannica, 250-year history. We've gone from those wonderful, beautiful books on the shelf to solutions which are all online and a learning content management system. we too have had to keep up with the times. And so we have recently integrated AI into one of our main solutions called Britannica School. Britannica School is basically online encyclopedia Britannica. It is updated every single 20 minutes, and the information is a worry-free tool, and our AI tool is worry-free. There is no misinformation or disinformation, hallucinations, or bias. So IB educators who are using Ask Britannica in their classrooms tell us that because the information that the children are gaining by asking, higher order questions or even more simple questions, they don't have to spend as much time concerning themselves with search and sifting through information that may not be relevant. They're able to get at the heart of the information that they need. It's also enhancing the ATL skills, the critical thinking, the research, the self-management, because they still have to learn how to ask those pertinent questions. Another solution that is we're pilot testing at the moment, and we're inviting schools globally to engage in this pilot test of a solution for teachers. It's an AI-driven tool called Britannica Studio. And this tool, what it will do, it's aligned to the IB curriculum, and you can put any scope and sequence objective in there from the IB across all programs, any transdisciplinary theme, any line of inquiry. And what it will do is produce passages. So reading passages, which can be leveled and differentiated to different skills and abilities of children. It will also have vocabulary tests. It will have assessment, so you can design assessments very, very quickly that can lead to more rather than recall, although it can be recall. You can put in questions that are related to problem solving and critical thinking. And in our version 2, which will be coming in spring, the AI-driven tool, Britannica Studio, will be able to produce lesson plans containing all the critical information that you would need, say, in a unit of inquiry, for example, or an interdisciplinary unit. So we're very excited about this, and we'd invite anyone here, if you would like to pilot test that, we'd be really happy to have you involved. And we also have another AI-driven tool called Hello Britannica, and that is a self-directed learning tool whereby children are acquiring English language skills within their classrooms or through self-directed learning. So we are having to move with the times. We are also talking to IB schools about how to manage impact, even when using our worry-free AI tool. What is the impact? How is it enriching knowledge? We're looking all of this, and we're talking to our schools, and they're saying they're extremely positive signs. Do we have all the answers right now? No, we don't. But we do have some solutions that we think can help in this world of AI and how to navigate it quite effectively. We do have some messages coming through, and thank you very much. It's great hearing all your insights, and thank you very much. And we thank you for coming. And this is recorded. We will be sending you the recorder. And yes, we will be sending you some information about the Britannica Studio pilot. I've used it. And in fact, I will just say that as an IB teacher, I really wish I had had this some years ago because it saves a lot of time and it's a lot of fun to use. And on that note, I believe Ingrid or Matteo, one of my lovely colleagues, we're going to ask you in a moment to, if you wouldn't mind completing a feedback form. This helps to inform us so that future webinars we'll be holding. In fact, there will be 3 more in November, one for the PYP, one from the MYP, one from the DP. We value your feedback so we can enrich our webinars and hope to see you at some of them again. So if you'd be able to take a moment and scan the QR code and complete the form, we'd be most appreciative. And perhaps it's Tanya or Ingrid who can tell me once they've completed the form, then they will be leaving the meeting, will they?
Okay, Laura, there's a question in the Q&A section. Can you just answer it, please?
Could you read the question to me, please? Because I can't see it.
Yeah, should we encourage students to use AI as a correction tool for their writing and use the new version for a class discussion? It's from Giovanna.
Okay, Giovanna. So I think the first question is, should we be using AI tools to correct writing? I was a literacy specialist for many years, and I also know about AI. I can't comment for all AI tools, but I do think we need to be a bit careful when using AI to correct writing. We may be able to focus on an aspect of writing, like grammar, verb tenses, something like that. But when we think about writing style and different genres and capturing the voice of a child, in my professional opinion, I don't think AI would have the capability of capturing a student's voice. Maybe some of the technical aspects of writing, it could correct, but then again, teachers need to check that to be sure. And what was the second part of that question? Ingrid, the second part of that question was?
Yes, if they would need to use a new version for the class discussion.
To use, I couldn't quite catch that, for a class discussion?
Yes, they can use a new version for this of this idea for a new discussion in the classroom. My connection is a little unstable, but could you hear me?
Yeah, it's breaking up a bit. So it's about using an AI tool to generate classroom discussion.
Yeah.
I think she's referring to maybe the studio, Britannica Studio.
I think so, because she wrote, use the new version, but she didn't specify version of what. So I think it's the new version of the AI pilot.
What I
Right.
understand is that maybe use AI with students as a way to correct their grammar or writing, and then use the version that AI provides for a class discussion, like to compare and contrast the differences.
I think that's it, Pia.
Or maybe if Giovanna wants to open your mic and speak yourself, please feel free to do it.
I
Maybe
think,
Giovanna send us.
yeah, I think that I'd be a little bit cautious about using AI to correct writing, other than perhaps very targeted what AI may be looking for. I think in terms of generating class discussion, I mean, Britannica Studio can produce any kinds of passages or summaries or bullet points or tables, which, the teacher prompts, and that can produce resources to use in class discussion for looking at a topic from different points of view. That's something Britannica Studio can absolutely do. And I think there's another message. The new version made by AI. Giovanna, we're just not quite understanding exactly the new version, the Britannica Studio, what you'd be interested to know what it could do. Okay, I think, yeah, we're just struggling a bit to answer that question.
Laura,
And
can I just add a little bit?
yes.
I would just suggest for all the educators to be careful when we are using AI, to use it in a way that we are not substituting student skills, like what we are actually asking them to achieve, because then AI is just going to do the work for them.
Right, absolutely. It's about that critical thinking, and the teachers also thinking critically about how they're assessing, making judgments about children's work. And again, the AI serving us rather than driving us, just making life a little bit easier in some ways, particularly for teachers, where you've got AI tools helping to produce resources. That's great. But we also have in Britannica Studio the teacher's ability to go in and make edits according to, how they know their own students at the end of the day, to tailor the information if they want according to their students' needs. I think that with conclusion, thank you very much, all of you, for the wonderful comments in the box. We hope that you've had the opportunity to give us some feedback. And I think right now we will be signing off, and we hope to see you again in future, and to have further discussions with your schools. And so, do we have a hand up? Is that from Michelle? Okay, right. Well, so thank you all very much again. I'm not sure, Ingrid or Tina, if we have to use the Zoom open while we watch our lovely guests turn to the QR code to complete the survey. I'm not sure how that works. Technology expert when it comes to Zoom, that's another matter. Ingrid? shall we close the meeting, or we will need to wait for our participants to scan the QR code?
We are going to send them the link by email to Laura, so we can finish it. Okay, we can end the meeting.
Fantastic. Okay. Well, thank you, everybody, and a very good evening here from rainy, cold London. I hope it's a lot warmer and sunny skies where you are. And thank you so much again. We're very appreciative. And thank you very, very much to Juliet, Bia, and Pablo. We look forward to working with you some more in future and these conversations.
Thank you so
Thank you, everybody.
much, guys.
Take care.
Thank you, guys.
Thank
Thank you. Take
you.
care.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.